Hey everyone, and welcome into episode 7 of the Gridiron Goliath Solopod with Marco Cirillo. Happy you guys are joining again today. We're going to jump right into it, mainly speaking about the NFL draft, also going over which teams improved the most in free agency, which teams didn't. But I want to get started and really dive into the betting markets around the NFL draft because I see some crazy value on the board here. Looking at the first overall pick, and by the way, this is all through FanDuel.com. I use them the most, so those are the odds that I'm looking at. Plus, they have the most options on the board at this time. So let's dive right into it. The number 1 overall pick, unfortunately, after the trade was made to the Panthers, really lost value because you had it at about even for a while there with Young and CJ Stroud. But now we know that the Panthers are kind of enamored with Stroud. It seems like it's going that way. And Vegas is always ahead of the game. They figured that one out. Stroud is at minus 270 on FanDuel right now. It's not really much of a value. If you want to place the bet, it's not the worst odds in the world to just make a few bucks. To me, he feels like a virtual lock at this point. I don't like placing bets with that little a return, but Stroud should be a lock. McCown, the quarterback coach for Carolina now, seems absolutely enamored with him, basically guaranteed him a spot on the team. Frank Reich loves him, won't stop gushing about him. So it seems like Stroud is more or less a lock. That minus 270 from Vegas suggests that. If you're in the business of placing, low risk, low reward bets, then by all means, that's about as low risk and low reward as it can get. Feel free to go for it. I'm not crazy about a minus 270 tag. So number 1 overall pick, I fully expect to be CJ Stroud at that price. I'm not placing a bet on it, but you could make money off of it. Moving on. The second overall pick is where it gets a little interesting to me because now we're hearing that the Texans might not even want a quarterback. I don't know if I buy that. We are heading into smoke and mirror season here. But theoretically, if they weren't going to go for a quarterback, you're looking at the odds. You got Bryce Young at minus 220, which is where I think they should go. And I think Bryce Young is so solid that he's actually fallen out of the news cycle a little bit just because Anthony Richardson is showing these crazy athletic flashes and Will Levis, nobody really knows where to think about it. So Bryce Young's really not getting discussed, even though he likely will be a top 2 pick. I mean, FanDuel does have him at minus 220. But if this report about the Texans not wanting a quarterback at number 2 overall is true, the first non-quarterback, odds-wise, at this pick is Will Anderson at plus 4,000. I don't think that they're going to shy away from grabbing Bryce Young. It doesn't make any sense for them not to at all. But there are reports out today that they may not be looking at a quarterback. So if you want to throw $5, $10, throw a small unit at Will Anderson while he's at that plus 4,000 with these reports coming out, it's not the worst bet in the world. It's $5, $10 that could have a huge return at a plus 4,000 margin. I fully expect Bryce Young to be the pick. Don't get me wrong. I'm not advising one way or the other. Gamble responsibly. I'm not responsible for anybody's losses. Disclaimer. But Will Anderson at plus 4,000 with the reports coming out today it's an interesting bet. So just something to keep an eye on. However, I fully expect him to go 3rd overall as long as the Cardinals hold that pick. I'm hesitant to place the bet because we're not positive if they'll trade out of that pick or not. And somebody's trying to leapfrog for a quarterback. That's really the only question there. The interesting thing is FanDuel seems to already expect that that's what's going to happen. So we have Anthony Richardson at minus 165 at that third overall pick, which makes sense to me if a team trades up. However, if the Cardinals are absolutely in love with Will Anderson, he's plus 430 to go in that spot. So you have value with Will Anderson specifically at those 2 and 3 spots if the Texans love him or if the Cardinals love him and they're not willing to trade out of the spot. I think that that's interesting. Plus, who's to say that Will Levis has to go to the Colts at 4? What if a team really loves him, trades up, and they don't want Anthony Richardson, who we've talked about it? He is a project. He's not a guy that you draft third overall. Somebody might, which is what I said pre-combine, somebody might because of his crazy freakish talent. But Will Levis is a more pro-ready quarterback. He's a guy that you can put on a half-decent roster and expect some sort of production. Anthony Richardson, while an athletic freak, still is not a good thrower of the football by any means. I wouldn't even say he's a good thrower. He has a great rocket of an arm, but he has no control over that arm. He has no mechanics. So if I'm trying to get a franchise back on track, I'm not taking him third overall. All this to say, Will Levis at plus 600 is a pretty interesting bet for that third overall pick. If somebody trades up, that's one pocket passer quarterback away, likes his big arm, likes his attitude, likes his moxie. Plus 600 is pretty good for Will Levis in that spot. I wouldn't even consider him for the first or second with Stroud and Young on the board. But if it's between him and Richardson and you have a 865 different points as far as money line betting goes, I would go ahead and take Will Levis in that spot for my money. And I likely will be placing that bet if a team trades up. Hopefully the odds stay there. I don't know if I'm willing to jump on it today. I'll probably throw a little money on Will Anderson today because that makes the most sense to me. But we'll see what happens. I think that Stroud is a lock for that first pick. FanDuel agrees at minus 270. It's not the worst thing in the world to place that bet if you're just looking for a win. You've been down on your luck a little bit. I'm personally not placing it just because I don't like the return and I don't like waiting for that return. Because you have to place it now there because by the time draft week comes around, we're going to know pretty much where he's going. And those odds are going to skyrocket. So if you have a few dollars saved up, you want to throw it at a minus 270, be my guess, and then just, cash out on draft night. Enjoy. That second one is kind of interesting. I want to see how legitimate these claims are that the Houston Texans are willing to not take a quarterback. I don't know how I feel about that, but I think that it's not true. They've just been so poorly run for so long that it feels like they would be stupid enough to pass up on Bryce Young in that spot. I don't think they will, but it does feel like something that could be true. I might throw $5, $10 on Will Anderson for that spot just because I feel confident in it. And I'll probably throw a full unit at Will Anderson for that third overall pick because there's no reason that the Cardinals have to trade down. They can if they want to, but they don't necessarily have to. So moving on, nothing really happening on the offensive lineman front. It's pretty much, I could see Peter Skoronski going ahead of Paris Johnson Jr. It's not unrealistic. I'm just not willing to throw any money on it at plus 200. I think if you want to make a safe bet, Paris Johnson at minus 150 is a good way to go. That would be my pick there. I'm not really throwing any money at this, though, because of the offensive lineman market, unless you have an absolute stud that is far and away better than everybody else, like a Quentin Nelson when he was getting drafted, there's no real guarantee. It's just preference. I mean, nobody expected Andrew Thomas to be the first one off the board necessarily in 2020, but it wasn't the most shocking thing in the world when it happened, because that's just how it goes with the offensive lineman, unless there's a generational talent. You're just going for whichever one you prefer the most for what you're trying to do as a team, and that can be hard to gauge as far as betting markets go. So I'll probably stay away from that. But I think Skoronski or Johnson could both be good bets. Skoronski's the one at the plus odds. If I was going to place a bet on it today, it would be on Skoronski simply because I like the odds more. And I think that either could happen. But we'll see what happens with that. I'll probably stay away from that market. Now moving into the division winners and the odds that we currently have for them pre-draft, but still. Let's jump into the NFC South, because I'll never, ever, ever, ever understand the inflation that Derek Carr has brought to the Saints projections. They have the third highest projected win total in the NFC. They are projected right now on FanDuel plus 115 to win the NFC South. It's basically even odds. The next is the Panthers at plus 280, and then the Falcons at plus 380. To me, the Falcons might be the best value bet to win their division in the league, solely because the NFC South is that bad. Let's not split hairs. I'm not saying that the Falcons are going to be world beaters and you need to bet them. How are they plus 380? That's crazy. But in a division that really anybody could win, the team that was in it until the last week of the season last year, the Atlanta Falcons, isn't getting any due because of Derek Carr, who, by the way, posted a worse passer rating than Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston last year, who, by the way, had a top 10 O-line, the rushing champion, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. That guy is the difference maker when the Saints have now lost Onyemata as well as Marcus Davenport. Where did the Saints get better? Because they didn't get better at quarterback. And if they did, it is by the smallest, slimmest of margins. But the Saints are plus 115 while the Falcons are plus 380. And the Panthers are plus 280 when we don't even know who their quarterback is. And they just traded away DJ Moore. That one makes no sense to me. I'll probably throw a good amount on the Falcons to win that division this year. The Bucs are at plus 500. I think this is just Todd Bowles' scapegoat year, Baker Mayfield's scapegoat year. That's going to be Tank City trying to get Caleb Williams, and it should be. But the Falcons plus 380, I think, is probably the best value bet as far as division winners go at this juncture. For me, they'd be even with the Saints at the top, worst case scenario, and to get them plus 265 lower, it's a no-brainer bet to me. I highly recommend throwing a good amount on that. If you're a betting man, if you enjoy gambling, that's the way to go. Definitely the Falcons plus 380. I also like the Bengals a lot at plus odds. Granted, only plus 110, but still plus odds to win the AFC North. After them, you have the Browns at plus 310, the Ravens plus 330, and the Steelers plus 600. The Bengals at plus odds to win that division with all the Lamar Jackson questions, with the way that Deshaun Watson played last year. Really, I personally expect the Steelers to be the second best team in that division, and I don't expect them to be all that close to the Bengals. I think they're going to run away with it. I think this is the year that the Bengals manage to stay healthy. Everything really clicks, and they're competing for the number one seed in the AFC. I don't think that any team in that division is keeping up with them. So at plus odds currently on FanDuel, I'd absolutely smash the Bengals. I think that that's a great pick, and I think it's one that people should be focused on. And then I'm also planning on parlaying the Chiefs and the Jaguars. They're both at minus 150 to win their divisions. The Chiefs haven't shown any sign that they're going to ever come close to losing this division. Let's start there. The Chargers retained Brandon Staley, so no shot. It's been well documented how I feel about the Denver Broncos. I don't think that Sean Payton is going to make that much of a difference for the team to the point where they're competing for the Chiefs. They might be competing for a wild card, and even that I think is a little far-fetched for them. We'll see what happens. Humble opinion. I don't think they'll get the job done, and the Raiders are a mess. So I don't see how the Kansas City Chiefs do not win their division. And same with the Jaguars. To me, it's not even so much about the Jaguars. The Titans are awful and getting worse by the day. The Texans are an embarrassment. And the Colts, I mean, all those teams, we don't even know who their quarterbacks are yet. You're likely going to have 2 rookie quarterbacks for the Colts and the Texans. And as far as the Titans go, we don't even know that they're keeping Tannehill yet. Do they just give up on the Malik Willis project? There's rumors surfacing that they might be trying to trade into that 3rd overall pick and draft their quarterback. But even then, it's Levis or Richardson. And although I do really like the prospect of Richardson and Derrick Henry in the same backfield, I think that would be a lot of fun to watch. It's hard for me to think that they're going to be competitive all the way through the season. Like I think Mike Vrabel's an excellent coach, so I could see them at, 7, 8, 9 wins despite a massive talent deficiency. But you need Treylon Burks to become A.J. Brown. You need Derrick Henry to run back the clock about 2 years. You need whoever you get in that 3rd spot. Speaking theoretically, we'll say they get Anthony Richardson trading up to that spot. You need him to at least not turn the ball over and use that athleticism like crazy. I mean, they might just end up running an Army-Navy offense. I don't know. It could be fun to watch in Tennessee this year, but I don't think that means they'll be good. So I think parlaying both the Chiefs and the Jags minus 150 is the way to go. I think that both of those teams are in a pretty good spot to win their division. And those were really the only bets that stuck out to me. Hard over mind for a second. I think the Giants are very solid value at plus 550, but that is dependent on the Eagles taking a step back. I think the Cowboys will take a step back without Kellen Moore. I thought that was an awful move. So I expect the Giants to finish second in their division, unbiased. My biases would have to get in the way a little bit, though, for me to say that they're overthrowing Philly. They went 0-3 against them last year. They need to prove that they can beat Philly before it's worth putting your money that they're going to usurp them. Thank you for watching. Click subscribe if you enjoyed this content, like, comment, and go to gridirongoliath.com for more no-fluff football stuff.